Hi everyone, it's Brenda back again with another episode of Three Uniques. I'm really excited to introduce you to Heather Odendaal. Hi Heather, how are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me, Brenda.
It's so great to have you on. So Heather's the co-founder and CEO of WNORTH out of Whistler, BC. So tell us a little bit about WNORTH, Heather, and I want to dive more into your background, but what is WNORTH, just so people know?
For sure. So WNORTH is a community supporting women who are aiming for or already on a senior executive leadership track. We started in 2015 with our Whistler conference, and then in 2018, we went global with an online membership that serves women who are on their leadership journey.
Amazing. And so how did you get started in this?
I was working for a Fortune 500 company in mid-management, and there were no women in the top 3 levels of leadership at the company. And there was also a lack of role models in the industry that I was in. So I went searching for a conference or community that was really going to focus on helping me level up my leadership to get to that next stage. And I couldn't find it. And so I decided to take my event planning background and to create the first WNORTH conference in 2015. And from there, recognize that beyond the conference, women were seeking more. They didn't want to just connect once a year at the conference. So in 2018, we started our chapters and we grew our online membership. And we now have over 450 members from around North America.
Amazing. And I constantly follow your team or you guys on social media. And so you're always posting amazing content about women and just, career development and leadership opportunities for women and just sort of, good thought-provoking content to help us really navigate our careers. Is there something that's sort of coming up right now for women that you think is really especially important, like a message that you want to carry off to your members and potentially new followers?
For sure. So what's really sort of firing me up right now is a statistic that came out just before the new year that 1 in 3 working women in Canada want to quit their job right now. Yeah, and it is a shocking statistic, but we all know that 2020 was extremely difficult. My concern is that, especially in the women that are on that track for leadership, if we lose those women, we will be forever set back in getting more women to power in corporate, entrepreneurial, and public office. And so my number one focus for 2021 is to inspire women to stay in the game in 2021. So if you are listening and you're feeling like it's all very much right now, I want you to stay there, stay in the game, and find your tribe or find your community, whether that may be WNORTH or another avenue where you can connect with other like-minded leaders. There may not be women in your particular department, and in some cases, if you're in a male-dominated industry, even in your company,
right,
that you can relate to, but they are out there and they need your peer mentorship as well. So that would be my advice, is kind of find your community during this time.
Right. And I noticed that you've recently launched like a leadership program. I think it's like an online course. So can you share a little bit more about that?
Yes, for sure. So in 2020, we pulled together 6 of some of the best coaches that I've worked with in past WNORTH events. And we developed a course which has 6 modules. We have inclusive leadership, we have conflict resolution, change management, digital upskilling, and just bringing together, 6 different facets of what I believe are some of the most important qualities for women in leadership right now. And we are just about to launch our 2nd cohort. So this is a 6-week course with live masterclasses every week with all of the participants and the course facilitator. So it has been a bucket list dream of mine to put together a course. And 2020, all the pivoting that we had to do with canceling our conference, it really gave us the motivation to start this. So it's been a passion project, and I'm really excited to launch.
It sounds like perfect timing. I mean, perfect timing as far as like what women need right now, as far as in their leadership. But, you know, all the articles that I'm reading about leadership that's required for 2021 is all about that, like helping people navigate change. Like last year was like, okay, we have to pivot quickly. We have to salvage our business, manage our cash flow, whatever that looks like. But there was still this sort of mass panic. But now it's like, how do we live with change? How do we live with resiliency, agility? So I think, you know, being able to spend time investing in your skills is so essential for leaders right now.
Exactly. And I think that one of the things that we've always believed at WNORTH is that leadership doesn't look the same for everybody. And I think that there is a really good case for bringing women together to connect on leadership topics. And so this is, you know, my opportunity. I wanted to call it the WNBA, in terms of, you know, just being able to give women this like next level or step up to the game and have that additional resource for learning the skills, but also connecting with other women. Many online courses don't always have that opportunity for connection. So I felt that was a really important element and a part that women thrive off of, this meeting with others.
Thanks. I'm so glad that you're doing that. And tell us a little bit more about yourself. So next to doing all the work that you do around WNORTH, what else is going on in your life right now?
So I am obviously an entrepreneur, and my main business is event planning. So it has, in addition to WNORTH, it has been a bit of a hiccup. And in my not my actual business, but the other work that we had been doing prior to COVID. So I've been able to dedicate a lot more time to growing the online community of WNORTH.
Okay.
And I've also been one of those people that has children at home. So I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and my 5-year-old's in kindergarten. And we have just been navigating the whole work from home, as many of us have been. And I'm just excited that my 2-year-old doesn't put her hands in electric sockets anymore as of about a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, it's definitely been a busy year, and but I am really excited to get started on this year, and we have some big things planned.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So you're here to share your 3 uniques with us. So how about them? Let's hear them.
Yes. Okay. I got my 3 uniques.
Okay.
So my first unique is identifying a need and filling it. You just want me to list them right away?
Yeah, sure.
Relationship focused is my second one.
Okay.
And my third one is planning from concept to execution.
Nice. So you said before we pressed play that you had, you know, consulted with family and friends. So how was it putting your 3 uniques together? Was that something that just came really easily to you? Is that something you had to spend some time reflecting on?
I definitely had to spend some time reflecting on. I think, you know, getting an outside opinion on, I definitely made them myself, but I needed to, you know, really dig down and find out what my husband specifically had said, you know, are some of my unique elements. It's been a whirlwind year. And so, you know, when I think about some of my strengths, organization and process are not things that are necessarily come right off the top, because sometimes my husband will say, you know, I will come up with like planning events from concept to execution. I move very quickly. So, you know, I think I had difficulty because I looked at that as a negative, that I run so fast. You know, I maybe don't go through this process or this step by step in my concept. But if you can kind of flip the script a little and realize that that's actually, you know, it has its merits. And if you can match me up with a coworker that is a little bit more meticulous, then we can come up with process that helps with execution. So
I think that's a beautiful way to say it, because so many people that I interview or even ask to be interviewed, and some people will say, no, I'm not like ready to share my 3 uniques. I'm like, okay. And my whole thing is like, there's somebody out there that's going to need your unique skill, because maybe they don't have that, and it could just be the winning formula to get something else created. So that's where it's like, get out there and share your 3 uniques and be clear and articulate them. And I'm sure we have more uniques. It's not just limiting to the 3, but it is a sort of 20-minute podcast. So we could go on and hear about more, but that's amazing. So let's hear about your first one again. Can you share a little more detail about it?
Yeah. So identifying a need and filling it. So, the best example with this would be with the birth of WNORTH. I was out there seeking advanced leadership training to get myself to the next level. I put myself forward for a couple of promotions. I had been told that I wasn't going to get the role because I was a female. I was beat down. Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
That was, and that was around, and a full acknowledgement that I was at an age where I was about to have children. Mm-hmm. And, there were a number of things and roadblocks that I came up against. And I wasn't getting the internal support at my company. So I decided I would go to a conference, or I would go find a leadership group that could help me get from mid-management to that next layer of leadership.
Right.
And when I couldn't find it is when, with a little bit of a nudge from my husband, let's build it. You're an event planner. Let's put something together that brings together women from across North America and inspires them to move from that sort of what is some aptly named as the messy middle in some cases, to the next position. So identifying a need and filling a gap is that first unique.
Amazing. And then your second unique?
Relationship focused. Mm-hmm. So I have always been a salesperson, but I wouldn't call myself a salesy salesperson, but I love to find mutually beneficial relationships. Mm-hmm. And a lot of what I'm doing at WNORTH is relationship focused. And, I find speakers through referrals, like it's just understanding that the web that is relationships.
Yes.
So relationships guide a lot of my decisions. And, I need to, I use that kind of to further, I like to also further other people who are working with me. Mm-hmm. I'll share their materials, and I'll just be very cognizant of that relationship.
And is that something that you've always been, or do you just realize, okay, as an entrepreneur, and especially because you're in, conference, event planning, you just have to do that? And so you've just developed that skill yourself, or was there a mentor or a family member that kind of showed you the way?
I think it's definitely, and when I look back at my career, I started in account management. So I was in sponsorship sales, and, that was very relationship focused. I believe that even going back as far as university, I was in a lot of roles where I was taking care of customers. Mm-hmm. And I think inherently that has been in the sales world, it served me well in terms of results. I was a wine sales rep, okay. One of my jobs. So when you're in a position where your company has asked you need to get 50 cases of, Kim Crawford Sauvignon Blanc on the floor right. at Christmas, there needs to be a history of that relationship. You can't just walk in that door and ask for that favor at Christmas. You need to build towards that. So I would say it's the years of being in sales roles that kind of that nurturing, and then the result.
Right.
That happens. So that's where I would say it kind of came.
Okay, cool. And then your third unique?
My third unique is planning from concept to execution, which I alluded to a little bit before. But this idea, we did more than 50 virtual events in 2020.
That's amazing. You said that earlier, and I was like, that's incredible to pull that off. Such hard
We
work.
have a small team. We
Yeah.
have 3 staff.
Hmm.
And, it was a huge sort of disruption
Hmm.
to cancel the conference. And we, in March, when we had the conference coming up in April, and we canceled it, but then I realized about a week in that there was that women in our community needed something.
Hmm.
And although it wasn't going to be the WNORTH conference, we created an entirely new event, which we call Pivot, which is a virtual panel series that we had on the same 3 days that we were supposed to be in Whistler. We pulled together 12 speakers, and within about 7 days. So 7 business days, we had pulled together the speakers' topics, and the event was up on the website. We had 600 people come to that event.
Wow, that's incredible.
And from literally 2.5 weeks worth of pre-marketing. So there was a lot, like that sort of concept to execution, and going back to what I was saying about, I may not follow all these systems and all these protocols when I do things, but we were able to figure out what women needed at that moment. We talked about working from home, managing remote teams,
Right.
to how to work from home with your children. And we had Esther Wojcicki, who is the mother of the CEO of YouTube and the CEO of 23andMe, talking about how to keep your children engaged while getting work done. So that's definitely planning from concept to execution and quickly is my third unique.
So amazing. Like when I actually hear them all together, it totally reminds me. I over the holidays, I read Seth Godin's book, The Practice. It's one of his new books. Like he writes a book every like
Yeah.
2 weeks or something, but he's a phenomenal writer and he's always got tons of great things to talk about. But some of the key concepts that he talks about that totally weave through your 3 uniques is he's a good listener. Like he listens to what his people, his community needs. And then he's always coming at it from I'm in service to them. And so I listen and then I'm in service to them and then I create stuff and I ship it. And he says, like, for entrepreneurs that want to be successful or anyone in business that wants to be successful is that sort of combination of like listening, being in service, getting in there and being creative, because we can all be creative. We may not think that way, but sometimes we have our limiting beliefs that hold us back from like executing on it. And then ship it, like just get it out there. Like, and I love the fact that you saw a need, you pivoted really quickly in 7 business days and you got it out there for women versus going, oh, is this what they need? I don't know. Oh, and maybe even stewing over the fact that you couldn't do your live conference and thinking like your year was over. You actually said, you know what, we can pull this together and still deliver for our audience.
One of my favorite sayings, it's not everybody's favorite saying, but it's one of mine, is done is better than perfect.
Yes, I love that one. Yeah. Yeah. And he talks about that a lot. Like we just get caught up in our own self and just like ship it. And then you'll find out, right? Like if it's only like 80% done, like get it out there and you can tweak it afterwards and you'll get feedback or insight from people. But at least you're feeding a need and it builds up your confidence to do more things. So, and it sounds like that's the track that you're on because you're really optimistic about 2021, which is fabulous.
I try to be.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take a look at that Seth Godin book because I was also, I noticed on your LinkedIn, you have some incredible book recommendations on there as well. So
I'm a big reader. And this past year too, what I found is I love Audible. And so Seth Godin, like if you get it, try and do it on Audible because he actually reads it. So
awesome.
If it's the author that's reading it, I find it's even more impactful than me reading it. Or sometimes like authors don't like, I guess, hearing their voice and they'll get someone else to read it. But he reads it on his. And so you get all the inflections, the tone, the humor, because he's got kind of a bit of a dry humor too. So
yeah, I love it. I'm going to check that out.
So I have a couple of other questions for you. And I think this is really fitting for you. So what advice would you give to a smart, driven, female woman executive that you sort of describe in your audience to enter the real world? Like if they were sort of coming out of college or university and want to be sort of that target audience that you're attracting right now with your content and your offerings, you know, what advice would you give them? So they're in that kind of like, I guess, like late teens, early 20s, kind of graduating.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I mean, one of the pieces of advice that I often give is, you know, choosing your manager is as important as choosing a job.
Mm.
So, you know, you're going to learn, especially in your first job, you're going to learn great things or not so great things. And I think that it's so important to focus on not only a great manager, but finding a great company to work for, even if your job is not necessarily what that your dream job is. It's more important to have the dream manager than it is to have the dream job.
I like that, because it's so true. Because if you have the dream manager that cares about your development, cares about like you as a woman too, helping to sponsor you and get you into the right meetings or in front of the right leaders that are decision makers, that really puts you in those experiences for leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's really good advice, because I think probably in my early days myself, I probably was more concerned about the brand on sort of my resume than who I was actually working for. And sometimes when I worked for those individuals and I knew that they weren't going to sponsor me or help elevate my career, it was, you know, it was a lot tougher to stay in those organizations. Yeah, that's good
Definitely.
advice. Absolutely. And then what's a habit that you've taken on, or a behavior that say you've taken on over the last like couple of years that's really served you in your work, in your family, just, you know, who you are as a leader?
Um, I would say sort of this is both family and career.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to, and I know that I have a little bit more flexibility with this as being an entrepreneur, but time blocking. So in the early part of the pandemic, even this past year, I was available for calls 5 days a week. But I have a 2-year-old that's only in daycare 2 days a week. And during the pandemic we had both children here.
Right.
And it wasn't sustainable. And so I now only take calls 2 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then just carving out certain days of my week. I wasn't particularly great at that before. And I have been, you know, sort of fine tuning what that schedule looks like. So for me, it's been about blocking and also trying to carve out time for me, which I mean, we all say we're going to do, but as moms, we rarely do. You know, I keep saying this is a quote that I got from Agapi, who spoke at our conference. She's Ariana Huffington's sister. She says, put your oxygen mask on before assisting other passengers. And that's definitely something that I'm trying to do more of.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of time blocking too. And even go as far as like block my time first, then family, then clients, like, you know, business, etc. You know, just making sure that's in there. If I have to move it because a client, like this is the only time a client can meet with me, then fine, I do. But then it's a little bit more conscious to me that I'm giving up a yoga class or a meditation time block, or just even a walk around the block with the dog. And then I'll have to reschedule that. But at least it's in my calendar, versus like a lot of times we don't even schedule those things. Like we'll just like, oh, I'll just squeeze in fitness or nutrition whenever I have time. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Heather, it's been amazing having you on today. I really appreciate hearing about your 3 uniques and just the wonderful things that you're doing at WNORTH.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was really fun and a voyage of self-discovery.
Good. A nice little thing to do on a Sunday morning, but I really appreciate it. So take care. And for everyone that's listening, just remember what I always say at the end of every episode is there's 7.5 billion people on the planet. Somebody needs what you've got. So get your 3 uniques out there and share them with the world. Take care, Heather.
Thank you.